Take 2 for this portion. And I was in the Navy department, so we sat down, and it just so happened that he had a deaf sister. So, you know, we did the whole interview process, passed, sent it to the Civil Service Commission, the CSC, you know, and, you know, they decided for all the personnel, for all of the government, the federal government there in the U.S., and they turned me down. So then they said, okay, let's do a trial basis for 6 months, you know, after we negotiated. And so then the director there was able to sign a little bit, so I was under a supervisor whose aunt was deaf, you know, everything worked great. So there were 4 different supervisors I was under. Everything came together just fine. I did the 6-month trial. Then they sent a letter to the CSC asking for a permanent position for me. And again, I received the same letter with the same form, same 2 columns, saying I'm ineligible due to medical reasons. The same excuse, the same envelope that said hire the handicapped. You know, and so they discussed. The director of personnel decided to go down there to the CSC. You know, he explained this to me later, that he went into the CSC, this big building, this big plaque they had on the wall that said hire the handicapped. And there were multiple pictures on the wall. People that were amputees, people that were blind, in wheelchairs, you know, and he stood there. And the director of personnel, you know, came out and said, you know, what can I do for you, sir? And he said, wow, I'm looking at this wall, and where are the deaf people? Do you hire deaf people? Deaf people are handicapped. And he said, oh yeah, we hire deaf people. And he said, I don't see any on the wall, you know? And it's true, when you put a person who can hear and a person who's deaf together and look at a picture, you can't tell if they're deaf or not. But he said, yeah, we hire deaf people. So then he explained about me, you know, gave my form, and then the man said, oh no, we can't hire them. It says they must be able to hear, to be an engineer. And so the director said, we need to change that. So they had a meeting, you know, and the director said he wasn't leaving until he got the okay. So, you know, they had a meeting and they said, all right, we will, you know, we can hire that person after, we can hire Al after we change that law. But you know how long it takes the government, forever and a day, to change a law. And the director said, no, we need it approved now. And just so happens at that same time, NASA, you know, was getting ready to found their agency, and they were hiring a lot of engineers. They were getting ready to print their brochures to hire engineers. They're all ready to print, but it says you must be able to hear to be an engineer. They heard about my case, stopped the presses, asked the CSC to expedite the process so they could change their brochures. So sure enough, in 2 weeks, they changed everything. And still today, I think that is a record for the government changing a rule in 2 weeks. Can you imagine in 2 weeks changing a rule? And finally, I got a permanent job. It felt so great. So that was in Jacksonville, Illinois, where I went to school. There were 500 pupils at that deaf school. 500. Yeah, it was good. I mean, you know, there was no trouble, no complaints, nothing. It was just, you know, a great experience. Yeah, I actually had spinal meningitis. That's how I became deaf. I was so sick I almost died. You know, and the doctor said, there's nothing I can do to help you. You know, she's gonna die. And my grandma didn't believe it. She brought me home. She took care of me. She fed me hooch, and the next day I was fine. You know, here I am now. I'm deaf, but I'm fine. And I'm 85. Okay? Now, everyone in my family can hear. Grew up in South Dakota. I was on an Indian reservation named Rosebud Indian Reservation. My parents worked there as, you would call it a representative for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA. You know, it happened that I became deaf when I was 3, from the German measles. You know, my parents were shocked. They didn't know what to do. You know, they took me to an audiologist. The audiologist thought about it and suggested that I be taken to an oralism school. Now, my father wanted me to speak. He wasn't a proponent of me signing. He wanted me to talk because if you look at my father's background, he was a very educated man. He had a degree from the University of Kansas. And so my parents, they had to find a job first. So they're looking at Vancouver School, like in Washington, the Washington School for the Deaf, or the Oregon School for the Deaf, or the New Mexico School for the Deaf. You know, working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So they applied, they got a job in Oregon. So that meant I was going to the Oregon School for the Deaf. So my family packed up, we got ready to move. Now some of my brothers were pretty disappointed about moving because they already had, you know, established friendships and everything there at the reservation in South Dakota. But, you know, nevertheless, we moved to Oregon. We found a place to settle. It was an Indian reservation. It's called Warm Spring. You know, it was actually pretty relieving for us because there was just a few white people. It was a lot of Native Americans, so we felt very comfortable.